Well, I haven't posted a video in a while, and it's mostly because of this little one right here. She's a sweetheart, but she's kind of been taking up our time a little bit. To start this project, I first bought one of those programs online, and I'll put a link to it in the description. I think it's called Chief Designer or something. But basically you draw out floor plans and you can walk through the house and see it in 3D, and it's really user friendly, and you can whip together a house in like an hour and play around moving walls, and that was just invaluable. Highly recommend it. The program's $100. There's different levels that you can get, but I got the $100 version. Like I said, check that out in the link below. I probably spent like 100 hours or something going through that program, and it only takes maybe 15-20 minutes to learn. But if you pass this to like an architect to do, I mean, you're talking a lot of money. So if you have absolutely no time and you have tons and tons of money, then architect is a great way to go. But ultimately you'll be making all your decisions yourself, and your architect will be just making suggestions. So I think if to get a house that you like, really you're gonna have to go through it in detail. There's really no way around it. So if you want a custom house, you're just gonna have to make a bunch of decisions. So highly recommend that program. Get it, go through it, whether you're building a house, remodeling, doing an addition, whatever. Well worth the $100. I'm really into high value, and you'll probably pick up on that on the channel. Pretty much everything I do is high value, and high value doesn't mean you're cheap. You know, I like things to last forever. I think most of the time that's the high value. But if you buying the disposable item is actually a better value, I'll go that route. So, you know, you really got to crunch the numbers and see what is ultimately high value. So you'll see that in a lot of what I do. So after we chased down and looked at like our top 20 floor plans that I drew up, we really settled on this design, and I'll show you kind of why we did what we did. I really like the view of our backyard back there, kind of our little pine tree forest back there, and then we really like this east view. It's kind of like a meadow, some sparse trees up in there, but really beautiful. And our front view, kind of hard to see with the sun, but we got a mountain out there and a lot of deciduous trees that are nice in the fall. So we pretty much have nice views in all directions, but we particularly wanted to get this eastward view, get the sun coming in here. So on our house, we're trying to decide, well, where do we spend our most time? Probably in the living room and kitchen. That's where we want to have lots of windows. So we wanted to add on a garage, but there were really, everywhere you add one, it takes away a view. So we decided to put it right here in the front of the house, a garage with doors, garage doors coming to the front. And it's kind of tucked up a little in front of the house, and basically that leaves a good amount of room in the back, and that will, back there will be our living room area, and then we'll have kitchen right there. So those windows will view there, and our living room windows will view the view out the east here. So that gets a lot of great views. And when you do an addition, you could save most of your money goes into foundation and roof. And so if you want more square footage, if you make it a 2-story addition, you can gain a whole bunch of square footage at a really good value. So we're putting a master suite up above all this, and now that would kind of overpower our current size house, having this huge tall 2-story over here. And we're kind of going for this old-fashioned English cottage roof, so we're actually going to do kind of a bonus style. So you have a peak, we'll use this peak, and the bedroom is actually in the peak. So that keeps the house from going too tall and kind of getting out of proportion here. We're going to rip this portion off here and put a steep pitch with a little curved swoop out here over the front door, and that should look really nice. So once we figured out our design, we passed this to a draftsman, because you know, it would take me a ton of time to figure out how to draft something up with all the special notes and details and stuff, and a draftsman's going to whip that out real quick. So I passed my file from my architect program to a draftsman, and he was able to make that into a plan set for only $1,500, because I had drawn everything up. So he knew we weren't going to go through all these iterations of changes and he have to go into great detail. He could just take my design and pump out a plan set for relatively cheap. So I think that was a good, excellent route to go. If we would have gone to an architect, it'd probably been more like 10,000 bucks or something to go through that whole design process. So get the $100 program, have a draftsman do it for $1,500, great value. So then once we had our plan set, we went through the hurdles to get permits, and I'll do maybe a separate video on permits, but that was kind of a big ordeal. But now we got our permits, and I've stapled it to up by my front door there, and so then I started construction, and so there was lots of landscaping all along the house here going around, and there was a front porch, so I ripped half the front porch off, and that I found these concrete steps underneath, which surprise, and I ripped off half my deck here, and I left a little portion just so I can get in and out of the house to open up that area. So then I had the choice of, for excavation, I could either do it myself, so you can rent equipment for about 300 bucks a day, so maybe 600 bucks, I could knock this out in 2 days. But I was able to hire somebody to do it for $1,500, all the excavation here, and they did it much quicker than I would have, and I don't know if it's better. It's probably real similar, but you know, the thing I wanted to get right is the foundation, because if the foundation is sinking or something, if I did something wrong or it's not level, that's going to cause a lot of problems later on, and it's just going to cost me money. So, you know, pay the extra, what, like 700 bucks to have someone else do it, I think is well worth the money if you can find a good deal. So I made a little hole right here in my wall so that you can see the level of the floor, because I'm going to match the existing floor so I can have wood floors flow throughout my house. And so they put a stick basically on there. It looks like a big ruler, and then they set up like this little tripod. It's called laser level, and it's spinning, and basically when they get to the right level down here, it makes a beeping sound, and you can rent all that equipment too. It's like an extra, I think it's like 50 bucks a day. So you can go around, have a friend kind of move it around, and then it says scoop 3 more inches, and then you scoop a little bit more, and you know, it takes a little tedious, but you know, in 2 days you get it knocked out, no problem. So here, this is going to be my garage, and really what we wanted to do here when we did excavation is we wanted to pull off as much soil as possible to get down to good soil, but I'm going to be adding gravel in here, so I don't want to take away too much more, because I just got to pay more for bringing in gravel, and I want to bring in about 18 inches. That'll give me about 3 steps down from the finished floor there into my garage. You don't want to have too many steps, otherwise it'll eat up a lot of garage space. There was actually a tree here, so we had some roots in here, and so if you guys are ever tempted to cut down a tree because you don't like its location, I highly recommend moving it. So this wonderful tricolored beech tree. It's beautiful in the fall, and I really didn't want to cut it down. So I found a guy with a tree mover truck like that one, but a little bit bigger. And I pestered him for 6 months, unfortunately, because I was kind of just checking up on him every once in a while till he had a job in the area. And then I asked him to move my trees. So he was in the area, he swung by, took him an hour. He moved 2 big trees for me, 140 bucks. So 70 bucks a tree. Those trees are like $1,000 trees at least. So big value there. They just came in. I'll link to I'll go ahead and show a short video of them kind of moving those here. This area, like I said, we left a big lump of dirt. So you dig these trenches, and that's where all your footings go, and then you cover it back up, because if you don't cover up your footings, or if your footings are right on the surface, the ground freezes and it swells and contracts every time it freezes and thaws, and your building's going up, down, up, down, up, down over the years, and all your nails work loose and everything falls apart. So that's why you go down below your frost line. Here it's 2 feet. I went an extra 6 inches just to be safe, and we'll see how this excavation came out. They might have gone actually a tiny bit more than that, but I think it's 2 feet plus 6 inches is about where we're at. So we were really careful with this gas line. When we were digging, we basically dug within like 6 inches of it and then pulled it out and rolled it up, and then as soon as the guys left, I reconnected it. That way my wife doesn't have to do without the stove working and all that. So the excavation went real smoothly. Like I said, they got it done in about an hour, but let me show you guys some problems that we ran into. So one of the things we ran into is that this power comes in, and this is direct bury. I think it should be a lot deeper than this. I think code is like maybe 3 or 4 feet or something, and this is like, I don't know, 2 feet it looks like. So for those of you with a power meter on the house, you don't own the power line, your power company owns it, and basically they'll be really picky about what you do, probably. But my power meter's on that telephone pole, which is rare. It's kind of an old-fashioned thing, I think, on these old houses. So the power running in here to my house, I own, so I can do whatever I want with it. And so the inspectors here are super cool, at least my experience so far. So they're gonna let me pour concrete all around this power, which isn't ideal. You know, we nicked one of the wires with the shovel, and I put some silicone on it there, and I'll probably wrap it up with duct tape. But so this is a little bit oaky to pour your concrete, but so I figure it's probably $1,500 if I rerun this line. And if I rerun it, you know, I'll pay that $1,500 now. If the line fails, then and my house is all built here, then I'll have to trench in, and basically I'll run the power through the crawl space and connect it back up here, and it'll cost me about $1,500. So, you know, either way, I might as well see if I can get 60 years out of the lines before they fail. You know, I don't know what would happen here. Like, your concrete's gonna crack and then shift, and not crack because of the wires. I mean, this is a 10-inch thick pad here. But let's say it did crack from other causes, and those 2 pieces of concrete shear and the wires in the middle, and it gets cut. You know, I think it's pretty far-fetched. I think it'll be fine. So we'll pour concrete around that, but that was something I didn't really expect. Well, we're doing excavation, pulling about 1.5 feet of soil off the top, get down and put our footings in. Really impressed with these guys. They know what they're doing. And they asked me, you know, how deep I want this crawl space. And, you know, I was thinking, we have water issues here, so if you have your crawl space down at a low level and all the ground outside is a high level, you're going to have more moisture coming through. So, you know, I said 2 or 3 feet is totally fine. So they left a lot of soil in here, and because they could have dug it down and had more like a 4-foot crawl space. But I thought, you know, might as well leave the soil there and we'll rake it out all smooth when we're done and it'll be great. So I end up going to bed that night, and then all of a sudden I realize, wait, I have 2 pony walls. So a pony wall is basically, instead of having these huge beams go across my living room here to support such a long span, that'd be pretty expensive, so they put pony walls, which is a little 1-foot piece of concrete they pour down the center here, and I've got 2 of them, and then they build little tiny walls on top of them, and then you put all your joists over that, and the joists don't have to be very big, so you save money. High value, yes. So anyway, so I have these pony walls, and they're not concrete. I mean, most of the wall is wood. So my idea of raking this out smooth afterwards isn't going to work, because you'd be raking it up next to 2x4s and they're going to rot out. So I realized that last night. I was like, oh great. And so I started today, or yesterday, and I started wheelbarrowing out this because I felt bad. You know, the guys, they did a great job. I was pleased with them on the excavation. I didn't want to call them back. So I thought, you know what, I'll knock this out. It'll just be a few hours and it'll be great. I did 2 hours. You could see this mound. I got a lot of it hauled off. And I thought, you know what, this is stupid. I want my crawl space to be nice and flat, and I'm going to have all these lumps in here because I'm not going to be able to bring out enough soil. It's going to take me like 20 hours. So I called those guys back, and they were super cool. They just said, yeah, no problem. We'll be back out in a day or 2. And so they're going to haul out all this dirt. So then my crawl space will be nice and flat, and it'll be level with the bottom of those footers, that the concrete that they'll pour here. That'll be great. Then you can use it for storage under there, or you can just crawl around and it looks real nice. So that was probably my biggest mistake there, but luckily it didn't cost me any money, and they'll be in the area again in a day or 2, so they'll just come out, and they didn't sound like they minded too much.